So you want to run and lift at the same time. Today, I'm going to be giving you essentials that you need to know if you want to maximize your gains. Let's dive in. If getting stronger is your goal, there's a good chance that you're going to be doing some form of compound-based exercises. These exercises recruit a lot of muscle groups and are targeted to get you stronger. The ones that I'll be talking about in particular in this video are the squat, bench, deadlift, and overhead press. However, the things I discuss in this video will also apply to other compound movements, not exclusively these ones. Lifting essential number one, how to use compound lifts in your program. As I mentioned before, compound lifts use a large amount of muscle. They use multiple muscle groups. These exercises are tailored at getting you stronger. Progressing these can be hard. They're harder than most other isolation exercises. The ones that I'll be referring to a lot today are squat, bench, deadlift, and overhead press in comparison to like an isolation exercise such as a bicep curl, tricep extension, or hamstring curl. Those type of exercises where they only target one or particularly one muscle group. One of the reasons why you would want to use compound movements if your goal is to get better at lifting while doing this whole hybrid training thing is because they target so many different muscle groups, because they recruit so much muscle. They are not the best exercises for stimulating hypertrophy in a single muscle group, but they are wonderful at building strength and wonderful at getting you bigger if that is your overarching goal. These exercises are generally much harder than your standard isolation movements. They usually have a little bit of technique involved that you will need to practice and develop over time in order to get better at them. But if your goal is to get stronger, these particular exercises can do that for you. One of the first things you're going to want to do is figure out the structure of your training program. Depending on what you're trying to prioritize at that particular time should come first. If you're prioritizing lifting, prioritize lifting in your training program and then program your runs around your lifting. If you're trying to prioritize your running in this particular block, prioritize your runs first and then plan your lifts around your runs. The reason why this is particularly important, particularly with lower body exercise such as running and squats and deadlifts and things that target the muscles of the lower body, is that they can somewhat interfere with each other. This does not mean that they can progress, but they do require some amount of planning to ensure you can get the best out of both of them. You don't want to be doing a hard run in the morning and then be trying to squat a 1 RM PB in the evening. What you want to be doing is having your week structured in such a way to maximize whatever you're going to do. One of the things that I do, and you can download my free hybrid training program that's available on my website, which kind of plans all this out for you. Prioritize one compound movement in each training day. So for example, right now what I do with myself and a lot of my athletes is Mondays are normally, say, a bench day. Wednesdays we'll do squats. Fridays we'll do deadlifts. What I can do then is plan my runs around those days. I usually do my long run on a weekend. So having my hard squat session on Monday morning is probably not the best thing because that long run is the one that really takes the most energy out of me and the one that fatigues my legs the most. So I've moved my squat day to later in the week, keeping my long run on the weekend, and I'll do bench and mostly upper body on that Monday session, less of an interference between the two training days. One of the things I like to do is use one compound lift in the training day, following that up with a whole bunch of other exercises that are either easier compound-based movements or isolation exercises targeting other muscle groups. I usually use a full body workout split to ensure that no muscle group is too sore or overly cooked compared to others. By targeting everything in a full body split, it allows me to distribute my volume throughout the training week to ensure that I hit everything with the best and most amount of effort every time I get to it. This also ensures that no particular muscle group is overcooked compared to others. So now that you kind of understand that mapping out your training week is important, let's also look at other variables that you'll need to know. Frequency. Frequency is the amount of times in a week you'll be doing that particular exercise or movement. How often in a week will you be squatting? How often in a week will you be benching? And so on. Generally, when it comes to hybrid training, due to the nature of the fatigue that you accrue throughout a week, you will need to do less frequent lower body training in order to still be able to run, and you can do more frequent upper body training. However, this isn't the case for everyone. In saying that, I will generally have my athletes and myself do lower body based exercises twice per week, with all of the other sessions having upper body in them. The reason why you won't be able to hit your lower body as frequently as your upper body is, one, you use your legs every time you run, so they're always going to be somewhat fatigued from running. In addition to that, legs are larger muscle groups compared to your upper body. They generally carry a lot more weight and they take longer to recover because of the amount of weight and effort and work that they do over the course of the week. If your goal is to get stronger, you want to find a frequency that works well for you. And you want to find a frequency that you can realistically have quality sessions and recover from. But I find 2 to 3 upper body sessions a week is ample and enough for me to both recover and progress each week, with 1 to 2 lower body sessions enough for me to get the stimulus that I require to progress. In those lower body sessions, I'll usually split up squatting and deadlifting to ensure they're not on the same day because they're very fatiguing for me. And then I'll have some accessory movements afterwards, which you can do quite frequently. These are usually isolation exercises. Now we will look at volume. Volume is defined as the number of sets and reps you will complete in a particular workout. The amount of volume you will be able to tolerate will be dependent on your fitness levels and work capacity. You'll need to find what works best for you. Your legs already do a lot of volume when you run, so you're going to find that they may not be able to handle as much volume under the bar when lifting heavy. So I generally find with lower body movements, or lower body compound movements rather, they will have to handle a little bit lower volume compared to that of the upper body, just due to the fact that they're used so often when you run as well. The number of sets and reps you'll be able to handle in a week will obviously be dependent on your fitness levels and what you've done in the past. But an easy strategy is to start low and increase them each week or every couple of weeks until you find a sweet spot that is what you can tolerate, recover from, and still progress. If you find you're feeling like shit, not recovering and not able to add those kilos to the bar each week or fortnight or month or whatever, then you're probably doing too much and need to dial it back a little bit. Now we'll look at intensity. Intensity is the weight you lift relative to your 1 repetition max or 1 RM. Hard or high intense movement could be, if my squat is 100 kilos and I decide to squat 97 on that day, that's going to be really intense because it's really close to my previous max. One of the strategies I use when it comes to intensity is I will start low and finish high. The earlier weeks in my training program or my athletes training programs are usually quite easy, not that intense, and it allows them to add weight each week until we hit something quite hard in the later weeks of the program, something that they won't be able to easily progress from, at which we'll then start a new program or go back to the beginning and kind of go over this again. When it comes to the compound movements, I have generally found that higher intensity, higher frequency, higher volume is able to be done for the upper body. But when it comes to lower body movements, you may need to lower the volume on those movements. You may need to have a little bit less frequency. However, if your goal is to get quality sets in, you can have the intensity quite high with these lower body movements because you don't have the volume and frequency that high either. So it may be of interest to you and have your lower body movements quite intense so you can drop the frequency and volume back as you need to. The intensity will still be fatiguing, but you should be able to recover from it a little bit faster than more frequent or higher volume efforts. This will then allow you to hit those runs as you need to, and then back it up with those weight training sessions as you need to, progressing over time. Progressive overload. Progressive overload is the continual progression of volume, intensity, difficulty of your running and or lifting in order to get the physiological adaptations that cause improvements. Progressive overload does not need to be a continuous increase of volume, intensity, or frequency, but it can also be your ability to increase your your volume, intensity, or frequency of a particular movement, indicating that you have improved. For hybrid athletes, combining both running and lifting, applying the progressive overload principle can be kind of complicated. The reason being is that both modalities alone, if they were on their own, it can be quite straightforward in that you just need to do a little bit more each week. Keep doing that until you can't anymore, and then rethink your plan or start again and try and go again. However, when you're combining both running and lifting, these two things both can somewhat interfere with each other if you don't plan your week correctly, but they can also be really fatiguing on one another. So if you're really pushing your runs one week, you might find it extremely hard to push your lifts that week, and vice versa. Lifting hard, runs become harder as well. So progressing them both accordingly can be challenging. I'm going to show you and give you a couple ways to do this, and I'll give you a rough plan that you can follow as well. In the context of lifting, progressive overload can be increasing the reps, weights, sets, volume. The key thing here, similar to running, is that you're just doing more over time. Now, applying any of those principles is awesome because they all indicate that you're able to progress. You're likely stimulating some form of physiological adaptation, and you're probably over time going to get the results you desire. When it comes to running, progressive overload can come in the form of doing more volume each week, running faster at a particular distance, doing different types of hill sprints, intervals. There's all different types of ways you can do it. The point is that you're doing more or harder work, again, that is causing a physiological adaptation. That means you are improving. How do you do these two things for running and lifting together? If you're a beginner, you're probably going to be able to keep adding weight, keep doing more runs without any issues. Even if you're a lifter that's only switched over to hybrid training, you're probably still going to be able to increase both for a while. And the same goes for a runner that has recently gotten in the gym. You're probably going to still be able to increase both for a while. But there will be a time where you get to a certain level, or maybe fatigue becomes really apparent, where you're going to have to either prioritize one over the other, or just take your foot off the accelerator a little bit and look for different ways to progress each. One of the things I like to use is this undulating model, which basically indicates that you can go high on one week with weight training and then low that week with running. And then the following week, you'll go high with running, low with weight training, high with lifting, low with running, high with running, low with lifting, and so on. So you see that continual progression week by week that accommodates to the amount of fatigue you'll accrue while still progressing each modality over time. As a side note, progressive overload and improvements can take shape in many forms. If you're moving faster, lifting faster, if you're lifting the same weight but easier, if your technique has improved, if you're feeling less fatigued after a particular workout, all these things are signs that you are improving. It does not necessarily need to be the weight on the bar. It does not necessarily need to be the speed or distance at which you're running. There's heaps of different ways to indicate that. A couple different methods you could use to progress. If you want to focus on lifting, you can keep your running volume the same and just focus on keeping the speeds at a slightly faster speed than you did each week. In saying that, you can then continue to progress your lifts in the gym each week with no problem, as fatigue shouldn't be too apparent, as long as you haven't structured your week poorly. If you want to prioritize running, you can do low volume, high intensity weight training, so that doesn't cause too much fatigue. And then you can continue to increase the volume and speed of your runs each week, allowing you to progress those further and further. And as I said before, if you want to increase both at the same time, you can use the high-low undulating model that I've previously mentioned and is also available on my website for download for free in my hybrid training program, which does it all for you. That will also help you progress both simultaneously. Okay guys, thanks for watching. That's a wrap on another video, lifting essentials for hybrid training. We've touched on understanding compound lifts and how to use them. We've gone over ways to use progressive overload in your training program to ensure you can get the most out of each modality. That's a wrap. Like, comment, subscribe. Contact me for coaching if you want help with your hybrid training program. See you guys next time.